Okay, so welcome everybody to this Zoom with Conscious Parents, Conscious Kids Facilitators, Irrational Guide to Parenting. We have with us today a lot of brilliant access consciousness facilitators.
Oh, thanks.
Brendan Watt is one of them. Megan Hill, Doris Schackenhopper, Shayna Fernando, Glenna Rice, Annabelle Percival, Marnie Barranco, Lale Hancock, and Anna Pescar. Woo! So welcome everybody. This Zoom will be in English, so I know there are people from all over the world watching. We will translate it afterwards, but we will get started talking in English, and if you desire a translation, that'll be coming afterwards. So welcome everybody. Thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks, Emily.
Thank you. Okay, so the topic is irrational parenting, so we can really start anywhere. So I'm going to throw out something and whoever wants to kind of talk about it. But
well, I'll say something.
Go.
How many of you have wanted to put your child in the bin and haven't acknowledged it?
Me.
And what we do is with that is we have this thought of, oh, I just want to get rid of them. It's too much work. Just for one day, I want to put them in the bin and walk away. But then we won't acknowledge it. So we'll make ourselves wrong for having that point of view. And then we have this constant state of wrongness as a parent. The thing with conscious parents, conscious kids is consciousness includes everything and judges nothing. So what if you could parent from a place of including all of that, right, wrong, good, bad, all of it, and not have a judgment of yourself as a parent? That's pretty much our target with all of this, is getting you out of the place where you have to judge yourself every day for how you're doing it right or doing it wrong. And that's irrational.
And Brendan just said what you're not supposed to say, which is that you get tired of your children and you want to throw them away. So if you've ever been around, if you're a mom and you've been around mom groups and you start talking about like, oh my God, it's so funny because you're not allowed to admit that you actually don't really like your kids sometimes or don't like being a mom sometimes. But this is inviting you to actually admit it. And then somehow the second you can acknowledge it, it changes really fast for both you and your kids and everyone involved.
So true. Well, does anyone else want to speak to anything around that before? Glenna, you look like you're about to say something.
Well, to not resent being a parent. You can get out of this kind of resentment energy that you often have that you never admit you have, like being wrong, but kind of resenting that you have to do this stuff, you get up every morning, drive them to school, take them to soccer games. You can't go out the way you used to go out before you had children. All those things that you pretend are okay because you got this cute little baby or this wonderful little toddler. But when you can get out of that,
or an annoying teenager,
or young adult, yes. It goes on and on and on. So if you're not resenting that, if you can get out of that energy that somewhere you are in choice and you're choosing to be a parent, and you're choosing every day to be a parent, when you be a parent. I mean, at times you can just choose not to. You know, I've had moments where I quit. That's it. I'm not a parent today, kids. You guys can go figure out your own dinner. I'm going to go do my own thing. And then I come back and go, okay, I had a minute and I'm back. Then you can have a lot more fun parenting, a lot more ease with it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure with all of you guys, when your kids came along, you read all the books on how to do it. I mean, I did that. I read all these books on how to do it. And then from day one, it was all about, I couldn't get it right. I just couldn't get it right. Everything that showed up was, well, that didn't work. That's not right. Now I'm wrong. And it was this constant thing. But the thing we do with this is we ask questions. Okay, what's going to work here? What is this? How do I deal with it? What can I do to change it? And we start asking questions because all of our kids are different. They're so different.
Especially our kids. And if you're listening to this, especially yours. Yeah. It's an irrational guide to irrational beings.
Yes.
Have you ever noticed you can't even make sense of them? I always say it's like negotiating with a terrorist. Like, no,
I like that. No, we should write it, Megan. We could write a book, negotiating with terrorists.
Called Your Children. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the most popular parenting book printed yet.
Because you can't, like, every day is different. I remember those damn parenting books. It's like, oh, if I could just get them on a schedule and get a routine going and like,
yeah, not gonna happen.
maybe then everything will work and I will have some sense of peace. Nope. If you've got a kid like mine, or what we call in Access Consciousness, the humanoid kids, the X-Men kids, they are a totally different invitation, and they are asking you to step up your game. So.
And they're smart, and you got to recognize that your kids are smart, and if you're not willing to outsmart them, then they're going to outsmart you and make your life miserable. One of the things that I found that made it way easier for me to be a parent was the willingness to be a bad one. And what does that mean? That doesn't mean, all right, I'll just leave the kid in the car for 2 hours. No, the willingness to actually get it wrong, though. The willingness not to have to get it right all the time. I mean, one of the tools I used with Nash for years was, you know, when something didn't work out the way that he wanted it to, I'd say, you know what, I'm so sorry. I'm a terrible father. And he'd say, oh, no, you're not, Dad. You know, but it brought up the energy that was there for him and for me. And it would bring it up, and then he'd acknowledge it, I'd acknowledge it, and it would go away. So it's all about just, you don't have to get it right.
So what you're saying is you were willing to manipulate your kid.
Me? Would I do that?
Are you? Yeah.
Can
Yes.
you talk about manipulation, Marnie? Because that word, when that comes up on these, you know, talks or webinars,
Totally.
people like, what do you mean manipulate? And I wouldn't want to do that to my sweet child. Would you like to say
the sweet child that's manipulating the crap out of you. But yeah, we have a lot of points of view, and I know I did too. I mean, just the word manipulation brought up the what? That's a terrible thing, manipulate someone else. But then I had a little point of view change, and I started to see that I can either do this sort of power struggle where you lock in on this, your kid locks in on this, and you lock back in on this, and you're just going to do this tug of war. Nobody's going to ever win the freaking battle. Or you can go, there's got to be a kinder, gentler, easier way. And the kinder, gentler, easier way is the willingness to go, oh, how can I actually manipulate the situation? How can I, as Brendan said, like outsmart, be smarter than these brilliant, masterful, potent manipulators, and be the energy that's required. And it's kind of the same thing if you've ever worked with horses. I mean, when you've got this big, huge creature, then no matter how big and strong and forceful and powerful you are, you're not going to get this horse to do what you want it to with your willpower, your force, no matter how hell-bent and determined you are that this should happen. You actually have to match their energy. And so are we willing to, whatever energy our kids come at us with, to, as Megan said, step up, be more present, and engage with whatever it is. And that includes the willingness to outcreate by manipulating.
And
So
Gary Douglas also recently said that the greatest manipulation is actually asking a question. And so what if you actually started asking yourself a question, your kids questions, because that's what we're talking about. We're not, you know, it's to manipulate, to create a change and to create a greater possibility.
yes.
And it's also about not trying to define ourselves as parents, like I'm this kind of mother and I'm not this kind of mother and I would never do that.
Mm-hmm.
And just like you're saying, just go with the questions and follow wherever that takes you every 10 seconds, really.
Yeah, and I love what Megan just said about the question, because that is the greatest manipulation. I love that quote. And that's the one thing you want to talk about, a rational guide to parenting. Parents aren't supposed to be asking questions. We're told we're supposed to have the answer. Why do we read all the books? Why do we go to parenting classes? Because we're told we're supposed to have the right answer. Our kid does this, we're supposed to know what to do. Our kid asks a question, we're supposed to have the answer. So if we buy into that, then we just, again, lock into that parenting that's not easy or fun for anyone. But if we're willing to be the space of question and actually go, okay, what else is possible here? Or even to look at, hey, whose point of view am I actually choosing to parent from right now? Is this even my point of view? And if I wasn't buying this point of view, what would I actually know and what would I actually choose? So being the space of question, and it is every 10 seconds. And I think that's the other thing, is we have had so much pressure put on us to get this parenting thing right. I mean, come on, there's dire consequences. Our kid could grow up to be a serial killer, you know, if we don't get this stuff right. So we try so hard to get it right. And then we go away from the space of question, and being in question is the only thing that's going to create ease and possibility.
Well, we have this one thing that we all tend to do as parents, is we listen to people. You want to get out of that place where you listen to people. I mean, I have this good friend of mine, and she's had a baby, and she went to the doctor, and the doctor said, you're feeding your baby too much because it's a little bit chubby. It's a baby. So she's like, oh, I'm feeding my baby too much. I'm doing it wrong. No, you got to look at when someone says you're feeding your baby too much, if it brings up an energy that's heavy to you, if you go, that doesn't quite seem right, you got to recognize, okay, that's an interesting point of view. They have that. What's actually true for my baby here? Or what's actually true for my kid here, rather than buying that person's point of view and going, I'm feeding my baby too much. You want to get out of that place where you actually listen to people and you start listening to yourself and your kids. Yeah, that's irrational.
That's totally irrational. Listening to your kids, what? Now you just brought up something like asking your child what they know. That's one of the greatest questions and tools that I've had over the years, is asking them what they know. But to the idea that you could ask a baby what they know, are you eating too much?
Well, you'd have to get over the idea that they're a baby. You'd have to start recognizing they're an infinite being with this tiny little body, and they actually know shit.
They have so much information. There's some of my facilitators through the years. My kids have definitely been my best facilitators. They've asked me, who does it belong to, before when I was in a funk. Mom, who does that belong to? Is that even yours? They know this stuff. I mean, crazy stuff that happened in middle school with my daughter. It is one of the hardest times for girls I think there is on the planet. Just asking them what they know about the kids that were being mean, what they knew about the situations. What do you know, and what do you know that could change this? And it all changed just with that simple question. They would look at the energy, go, oh, it's this. Oh, I can do this to change it. I'll be nicer to this one. I'll ignore that one. Whatever it was that created a different possibility would show up just by going, hey, what do you know about what's going on?
Yeah. And the thing I love about young kids, before they're probably like 5 or getting into school, is they don't think. They haven't learned how to think yet. So getting information from them with a question is much easier because it's instantaneous. They don't have to go, oh, let me ponder that for a moment. They just have it there. So you can ask your kids a question and you'll get this awareness from them. And that gives you the path on which to start following your knowing and theirs.
I think that's such a difference with this conversation. And like you were saying, Brendan, earlier, like parenting books, we're so used to in parenting looking for an answer or a book or an expert or someone to tell us. And, this conversation isn't going to give someone an answer, but you guys have already thrown out a lot of tools, that we talk about in Access Consciousness, like interesting point of view. So do you guys want to talk about people? A lot of the questions are about having really intense children, the guilt we have as parents. If anyone wants to take that one on,
I'm guilt-free now. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, help me then. Can you help me?
No, but I feel guilty every day. So it's like, I would say one of the Access tools is that guilt is actually a distractor implant, which is distracting you to see what's actually true. I have yet to have it remove guilt from my parenting or from my life, at all. But you just got to know that.
That's what alcohol's for. Hello.
True, you drink. And also you just got to know that you're doing the best you can with the tools you have available. And one thing that Gary Douglas told me I think it was one of my first classes after I had my kid, he was like, if you get your kid to 18 alive, you're a good parent. And I was like, oh my God, that's all I have to do. And so you're never going to be perfect. You're never going to be a mate. The idea of perfect parenting and all of that is just, it's an ideal. It's not exactly possible. And if you have that as your main goal, your kid is going to just use it. I mean,
they're going to love it. They're going to walk all over you. And you can't, one of the things I'd like to say is you cannot break them.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't have a great childhood. It was not easy for me. And I grew up, okay, I'm good.
You're now traveling and changing the world. I don't know.
It's like you can't break them. And one of the things that may help you get out of the situation where you judge yourself all the time with parenting is recognize that your kids have choice. Even if you're the best parent in the world for 18 years, they're still going to choose what they're going to choose. It's not up to you on what they're going to choose for their life. It's up to you to put food in their mouth, take care of them, and like Megan said, keep them alive for 18 years.
I mean, look at you. Could your parents make you choose anything or make you be anything?
No. I mean, and that's the thing. And we talked before about humanoid kids and, you know, these X-Men kids and stuff. When somebody tells you what to do, what do? You go, no, I'm not doing that. But if somebody offers you an invitation or a question, then you might go along and go, oh yeah, that sounds pretty cool. But if someone's forcing you to do something, you'll resist it. It's the same with your kids. You want to, that's with the manipulation, you want to start learning, okay, how do I get them to kind of come along for the ride here and make it be a little bit easier? One of the tools that we use, all of us use on each other and ourselves as adults is we'll say, I bet you couldn't do that. No, there's no way you could do that. You know, with your kids' homework, for instance, or their maths test, if they're getting, you know, they're not getting good grades in maths, just be like, that's okay. I know that you could never do well in maths, you know, and leave it at that, so that then they'll have a question in their world and they'll go, yes, I can do good at maths, but it'll put them into a place where they'll start challenging themselves rather than challenging you.
Yeah. We have a question that says, how do you move from being a perfect parent to a conscious parent? And I think
give up judgment.
Well, and conscious in the world other than access consciousness is about trying to get things right and be enlightened and have, I don't even know, attain some level of something that is unattainable.
That's why we didn't call it becoming an enlightened parent.
I had a conversation with someone the other day and they're like, I think people who are all about enlightenment should lighten up. I'm like, I think so.
Well, and with all of the questions about, you know, safety and all of that kind of stuff, one of the things to remember is that these are infinite beings in little bodies. And when we take away their choice, or we take on the expectations of it's our responsibility to make sure that they get it right, or that they learn to do this, or that whatever those list of expectations are, we're actually being the superior people in their world who think we know better for them than they know for them, when they're actually infinite beings with total choice, who, if we will empower them, can go and create all kinds of awesome stuff. So when we buy into the point of view that they're finite, that they're small, that they're these, like, you know, fragile little whatever, then all of that guilt, anger, fear, distractor implant just gets triggered, and we live from that. But remember, this is an infinite being, infinite choice, potent, powerful, little body, big being.
And would you like to talk about when they make choices that seem like bad choices for them? Like, someone's like, well, you mean you let them not do their math, or you let them, like, can someone talk about empowering them to choose and see what their choice creates, even if it's not what you would hope?
I'm going to be quiet for a moment, because I think
I want to talk. I love this one because I got it after 3 kids. The third one, I got it. Not to interfere with what their choice is creating. It's like, they choose not to do the homework, then I either want to make them do the homework, or I need to intervene with the teacher, or I need to have a meeting with the teacher, blah, blah, blah. And then I took myself out of it and I went, wait a minute, teacher says this, they're choosing this. How is that my responsibility to navigate? So I stopped running interference. And my favorite choice story, Aaron was 4, he's 10 now. He was in preschool. I was working from home and he went to preschool 3 days a week. And it was a day that he was home with me and I'm working, and he comes walking down the stairs, just streaming tears and sobbing. I was like, dude, what happened? Are you hurt? And he has this toy in his hand and he goes, this isn't mine. And I said, okay. He said, it was my friend's and it was in his cubby at school and I liked it, so I took it. And I said, okay, well, what do you want to do now? And he goes, I got to take it back. And I said, you know, tomorrow when you go to school. And he, no, Mom, can we take it back now? So I said, fine, let's go. So we take the toy, he walks into the class, he finds his friend and he goes, I saw this in your cubby and I really liked it, so I took it and I'm sorry. And the kid just wraps his arms around him. He's like, oh, I was looking for that. Thanks, man. And he takes off running. And so we're walking out and I just looked at Aaron and I said, so what do you know now that you didn't know before you made that choice? And he goes, it's not any fun to take things that aren't mine, Mom. So, but his choice, you know, he didn't get in trouble. Oh, how could you steal? You know, stealing's bad. You're not supposed to steal stuff. No, he chose, but there was the space for him to go, oh, wow. I now have the awareness that that choice did not create what I desired. How much farther does that take our kids?
Yes. Can I just, that part there that you asked him that question after he's done it, where he got to get that awareness, that's the thing that you want to do with your kids, because now he has that for his whole entire life. Because what you want to get your kids to is they make choices, and what did that choice create? So he made that choice, recognized what it created, he changed it, recognized what that created. He gets that forever now. You can't teach your kids that. You can only ask them questions about it until they get it. So that there is the brilliant part of asking your kids questions about what's going on for them and how they're making their choices that are creating their life.
Can I add something?
Well done, Marty. Good job.
It was all awesome. So another question. So someone brought up homework, and I used my kids to, my two oldest didn't like doing homework, didn't do homework, got out of it any possible way they could. And that was really their target, is to get through school and not have to do homework. They created a wonderful things to figure. My son created a class, if he got A's on tests, the teacher didn't give homework. He got this math teacher for 2 years. I know this was a choice for him. But one of the things I used to do is the question of, if you choose not to do your homework tonight, what's that going to create tomorrow or next week or in your future? To ask them to start to look at what their choices are creating for their future. What's tomorrow going to be like if you don't do the homework? And they would sometimes do their homework when I asked them that, and sometimes they wouldn't. And the next day they would go, "Oh, Mom, no one had to turn in their homework tomorrow." The next day, when they chose not to. So they would actually get this energetic awareness of what choosing that was going to create for them. And like Brendan just said, they have that tool forever now. They actually create their life from if I choose this, what's it going to create in my future? What's my future going to be like? And I can see them choosing now as young adults from that place that I was showing them years ago. So this is an amazing way to create something greater for your kids that they're going to have forever.
Yep.
And it's also like, I wanted to add, how sometimes children will just choose something that is so similar to what we chose, and it's kind of difficult to be in allowance of that. And then I just realized that it's so cool that she's choosing to get that awareness now, because it took me like 40 years, and she's having it now at 8. So how cool is that, right?
Yeah, they're but how cool is that you actually gave her the space to have that at 8? You mightn't have had that when you were 8.
And can we just acknowledge that to the parents that are on here listening, whatever your question is, the fact that you're asking a question says that there's something else possible. So, and can you acknowledge that when you're asking the question, you're going to have the awareness of what it is you're asking for. So kind of kudos that you're irrational enough to do it different and ask questions. So just an acknowledgement of that.
And as I look at all the questions, I'm trying to group them into, okay, these are all about, one thing that comes up a lot are a lot of the projections, the judgments from whether, I'm taking them in public, or the judgments their teachers have of them and what you expect of them. Would someone like to talk about the irrational way of looking at projections, expectations, and judgments with children and who they're interacting with?
Yeah, where's my book? There's a book here somewhere. I think it's in the sauna. There's a book.
It's right
There it is. See it? Lally's got it. Glenna, are you going? Are you taking it?
I wasn't.
You weren't?
No.
You want me to do it? Well,
we can do this. We all know about these things.
Well, the projections and expectations, they're the things that we'll put on ourselves, and we'll put on our kids, and we'll put on the teachers, and we'll put on everyone else. But when they're not met, when those projections and expectations are not met, that's what keeps us in that place of separating from us, from the teachers, from our children, and judging us, our teachers, or the children. So fast forward, I would say the easiest way, and I'm not sure if probably don't have any prereqs on here, but I'm saying it anyway, is we have the clearing statement in access consciousness, which is right and wrong, good and bad, pod and poc, all 9 shorts, boys and beyonds. It's what we use to change the energy of things when we ask questions. What I do is I look at it, and when one of them comes up, I go, okay, all the projections, expectations, separations, judgments, or rejections I have of this situation, I'll destroy and uncreate it. And that's about, without going the long version of this, it's really about just changing the energy of that situation, because they're the places that keep us stuck. As soon as we go into those things, and then I'll go, okay, all of that, right and wrong, good and bad, pod and poc, all 9 shorts, boys and beyonds. That's what I use personally. because I know that it's one of the things that stops me. So that's my thing.
I love that. And I also have, I think every teacher, every situation becomes different. So you have to, like we've said, ask questions.
And don't say that clearing statement to the teachers. You want to maybe do that in your head, okay? Because you'll be like, cuckoo, cuckoo.
But you can ask, you know, what will it take to change this? And then you'll know. And I had one teacher who was like, you know, I either have to take him out of this classroom, or, you know, I attempted to change it with the director of the school or whatever. But what ended up changing it all was that I actually explained to Tristan that, hey, her anger, like, I mean, she was a preschool teacher. She's trying to control 30, you know, 4 and 5-year-olds with like extreme rules and everything. And I'm like, she just wasn't like, what do you know about her as a kid? Did she have did she have parents that would allow her to be her? So once he and I asked some questions together that allowed him to see that she was just being who she was, then he didn't make himself wrong, and he knew how to start manipulating the situation so that the whole thing could be easier, if it makes any sense at all.
Yeah,
Totally
and
makes
that's the
sense.
thing you want to look at is what's going to make this easier.
Yeah.
And you hit the key thing of it's when they don't buy that they're wrong. And there's a million stories with my 3 kids that I could say exactly what you just said. It's that, okay, so this is where this person's functioning from, but what's true about you? What do you know? So, and even then saying, so what does this person require? And is that something you can do to create more ease for you? You don't even have to buy it. You don't have to believe that you need to do whatever she says, but if that's going to create ease for you, could you choose that? And then it literally puts them back in the choice of, oh, I can choose. And
that question that you said at the start is brilliant. This is what you want to ask your kids: is what's true for you?
Yeah.
Because if you're asking your kids that, and especially from a young age, and they start to get what's true for them, they'll recognize that it's their life, it's their world, and they can create it. Not what's true for somebody else, so I'll choose that. What's actually true for you here? If you ask your kids that, they'll start getting what's actually true for them.
Yeah.
And with
much easier.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's just so much easier if you start using all of this so that you don't actually have the reaction and the resistance. Someone saying about, you know, the evil in schools. It's if you can get to a place where you and your kid actually have no resistance or reaction to anything that's going on, that's when you actually have the space to create change. And if you can empower your kid to be that, they'll become the leaders of the world. Like there's teenagers out there right now, like in America, there's this whole, you know, gun situation thing going on. And the kids are like, you know, there's parents wanting to fight, but the kids are actually being a totally different energy, which is super cool. That's like, hey, this doesn't work. We need to change it from a different space. So that's what I add to that too, is how do you actually empower your kid to be the space that creates change?
And fight always creates fight.
Yeah.
Fight will never create anything but fight. So it's like, have you ever had a fight with your kids and it made things better?
No.
Or a fight with your partner and it made things better? It never makes things better. You got to look at, okay, if I push my walls and barriers down here and I address this situation from a place of allowance or a place of not fighting, how different could it be?
Does someone want to talk about allowance?
Yeah, can I speak about that? That's actually one of my favorite tools. And you know, so many questions you guys have submitted are amazing, but I get it still as parents, us desiring to solve everything for our children.
Well, that's your job, right?
I know, that was my job forever. My kids are older and I wish I had the access tools when they were younger, but I get as a parent who was a humanoid, I actually was applying these tools without even knowing I was already doing it. And allowance is a huge one. And Brendan, you've brought it up in a lot of different examples, and so have the other facilitators, but I actually want to put words to it. It's actually allowing you to be you and allowing your children to be them, allowing the teacher to be the teacher, allowing the school system to be what they are, and not want to go from the space of fight. And one of the things with these tools, with these great access tools, is when you are willing to allow and be this interesting point of view. And I know at first people are like, it's so easy to say it than to be it at that moment. But when you're willing to just for a moment, just be like, okay, I'm standing here and I'm just going to be like, okay, if I'm ready to fight or be on the defensive here, that means I have some kind of resistance and some kind of wall here. What if I'm willing to actually just say, wall down, wall down? Or you could say, interesting point of view 10 times, interesting point of view, interesting point of view. I have this point of view, interesting point of view. They have the point of view. And once again, coming back, our kids know so much more than we ever give them credit for. And they may require some almost permission from us to use the tools that they know but don't have words for. So that's where it comes in, like, what do you know? Then you actually empower them to tap into what they know and ways that they can change this. I've seen my kids be in such weird situations that if I would have been in that situation at their age, I would have left crying or I would have felt bullied or something else. And I've watched my kids just be themselves and everything melts around them because they are willing to actually trust themselves. Now, it takes conversations from us. It does take things as parents for us to, I want to say empower, even though it's not really empowering. It's just allowing them to know what they already know and to know that it's okay to do it in a different way than other families or other kids might do it. So coming back to this allowance, it really is when you're willing to be, and it, as allowance, you don't have to accept. And that's one of the things that I found that really made a difference. You don't have to accept the situation to be an allowance, but you allow it to be as it is. So you get the information, but you also then allow you to receive the awareness and information of how to do it different.
Well, that's the thing though, is you get the information. If without the, because as soon as you put the walls up to your kids or you put the walls up to yourself, you cannot get that information. It cannot find a way in. That's why, you, like you said, it's like if you put those walls down, you'll allow yourself to get the information of what's going to create that ease. Allowance, I'm glad you're talking about it because my point of view is it's the greatest tool with creating ease with parenting. If you've got that place of allowance, parenting becomes way easier.
Well, and it becomes a lot easier dealing with other people at work, at home,
everyone.
At school,
yourself, looking in the mirror, it's much easier.
Even with
and
you.
can I just add that allowance really starts with us. It's like, since I am learning to be more gentle with myself and not judge my decisions so much, I can be that with my kids with so much more ease. So it really starts with us.
Well, you want to be the invitation for your kids. Like I see so many parents go, well, I want my kids to grow up to be successful, yet they're not choosing anything to create their lives. So it's like, what invitation are you being for your kids? I mean, I remember for me years ago, I was going, I want Nash to have a, you know, a greater world to live in, but I was an unhappy asshole. And I'm going, wait a minute, how's this going to work? I'm teaching him how to be an unhappy asshole, yet I'm projecting at him that he's going to have a better life. It's like, no, you want to be that invitation. If you can get yourself out of judgment, what does that create for the kid? It gives them a place to recognize that it's not actually valuable, and there's a place where you can be out of judgment.
Yeah, so, these are parenting tools to change the parent's life.
Yeah, well, you want to start with you. You don't want to start with your kid.
But I love that as we're talking about this, there's all these questions of like, I'm judging myself for they're watching too much TV or they're, you know.
We must be psychic.
Or they're smoking pot. Yeah.
Well, if they're smoking pot, then they're smoking pot. I mean, that's one of the, it's like, what do I do? All right, well, you tell them if it doesn't, and the other thing with allowance is it's not a doormat. You got to be able to set, what you want to do with your kids, and especially if they're teenagers, is you want to set no more than 3 rules. Because if you're setting a barricade of rules, they're going to have to push them all down and they're going to break them all. But if you set 3 rules and you explain all of them and why you've set them, then you can start getting a little bit more control over the situation. And the thing with allowance not being a doormat is if you've got a 16-year-old kid at home smoking pot in the house and that doesn't work for you, that's when you got to look at, this doesn't work for me anymore. If you're going to smoke weed and you have to do it, you do it outside of this house. But you got to be willing to be the leader of your family, the leader of the pack, the lead wolf. But when it doesn't work for you, you got to be able to put your foot down and say, no, this doesn't work for me. You will stop doing this, or you'll stop doing this in my house. But that's that place of being willing to have a level of intensity with your kids in order to change something. Okay,
you're both empowered to choose.
What's that?
And said everybody's empowered to choose. You're not taking your kids' choice away, but you also get to choose what's going to work for you. And that's like a really new thing for a lot of people. I mean, how much are we told we're supposed to give everything up for our kids and make it all about them? And that, well, you have a kid now, so it's about sacrificing yourself. You don't count. And how much does the resentment start right there? Because we buy the point of view that now I have to sacrifice and I no longer count. So what if we do count and we get to choose?
And how many of you guys listening have all bought that point of view?
Yeah.
I mean, that when you had kids, you had to give up your life, and are still living your lives from that point of view. Everything you've done to buy that point of view is real and true for you. We destroy and uncreate it. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys, millions. I mean, for me, when Nash was born, all my friends were kind of having babies at the same time as well. And they were all saying, well, you've had your fun now. It's time to settle down, time to give up the fun. And I was thinking, what? It never made sense to me, because I was thinking, well, have a kid. What's that got to do with fun and giving it up? But as parents, we think, well, now that we've got kids, we should settle down. We should, change our lifestyles. We should, whatever it is. But it's like we buy that point of view and then we live our lives by it while being frustrated with ourselves for ever making that choice. Yeah. You don't have to give up anything to be a parent.
One of the things that really changed for me with that, hearing that, not sacrificing your life for your kids, is looking at what that creates in the kids' world.
Yes.
If you had a parent that gave their life up for you, then you're seeing that that's what you're supposed to do as you grow up. And who wants that in their life? I mean, my kids love the fact that I create a big life and make lots of money, and they get to have all of that.
They get to spend it.
They get to spend it and live in a nice part of the world. And if they have no desire for me to give up my life, that's a weird parent point of view. I do not see kids that actually require that from us as parents, that we give up our life.
Yeah.
Creating a great life is much more fun for our kids.
Well, you also, like that, what I was saying before, is what an example to set. You're going out there, you're changing the world, you're traveling, you're earning money, you're having fun, you're meeting people, it's like, and your kids go, oh, I can do that. I don't have to, like have a boring life. I can actually have it. I could even have kids and have an exciting life. I could even, it's like,
at the same time?
What an invitation. Rather than the boring mom and dad that just like come home from work and like, sit on the couch and drink a beer and depressed. It's like, you don't have to be that as a parent. You can actually have your life and invite them to it.
And I find when I'm having my life and inviting my kids to it, they require so little from me. Yeah. When I make it all about them and making sure everything's fine and it's all about their world, they want more and take and demand, and it's never enough. And you're going, ah. And then when I actually start to choose for me, it's like they have this space of so little they actually require for me. It's kind of funny to watch. So the one thing I was noticing with all these questions too, and thank you for them, how much do we look at parenting as a problem to be solved? Tantrums, a problem to be solved. Smoking weed, a problem to be solved. Teachers judging our kids, a problem to be solved. Everything from a problem to be solved. What if parenting is actually a possibility and a creation and not a problem to be solved?
No, Marnie.
I know, it's freaking crazy. It's totally irrational, right?
Marnie, that's the job they take on as parents. You're the problem solver of the universe.
Right?
Life our role the problem when you have kids. Duh.
Right?
They're one big problem.
One big problem.
That would be a good kid's name, actually. Just problem. Straight from day one.
Right?
No projections in that though.
It's sorry to disrupt everybody's like solid point of view, but what if it's not a problem?
You're actually talking to the energy that's there though. It is, because it's like,
I know.
That's what we get up in the morning and we're dealing with, okay, what are the problems here now? Yes. But you're right. It's okay, rather than going into what's the problem here, how can I create something different? And that's the creative energy rather than the problem solving energy. Problem solving energy always keeps you in the problem.
And how many possibilities hide in the problem? And if we weren't focused on it as a problem, we would actually go, this is actually getting my attention to something else possible that I've never considered. I wonder what the possibility in that thing I'm calling a problem actually is.
Well, that's the place where you get out of the problem, is that question.
Yes.
I wonder. And if you started wondering as a parent rather than judging, if you started wondering and looking for possibilities, then that one thing, questioning everything, will change everything.
And there was a few above that I kept seeing. It's one of my favorite tools. I use it all the time, and it's, who are you being? I use it for myself, and I use it for my kids. So if your kid is like, doing what the other kids are doing and smoking weed, ask, who are you being? Is this truly who you'd like to be? And then if you're, freaking out about how to handle it, who are you being? Are you being how your parents handled it? I mean, I smoked a shitload of pot and I hid it from my mom. I hid it from my mom. Like, there was nothing she could do to stop me. I was going to do it. So, and she was oblivious to the whole thing. So it's like, how can you, like Brendan said, how many rules can you give them, or give them 3 rules and then explain to them why? And your kids are likely going to try drugs, so maybe not trying to stop them from trying it. And then there was another one with the tantrums. There was a couple about tantrums above.
I used to have tantrums with Nash when he'd have tantrums. He did it 3 times and then he stopped doing it forever.
Yes, when you lay on the floor and cry like a baby, and in the shopping center or whatever with them, they quickly
they realize that's not working.
One of the things with tantrums I would do also is whatever they were about, they didn't get that. I mean, tantrums are a manipulation to get you to do something for them or get something to change. And if they start getting that manipulation is one that works for you, or it does work, or it gets this result, they're going to try it again and again. So if you aren't giving them that thing and guiding them, like, okay, I used to say, not really young, but hey, that manipulation isn't ever going to work for me. You coming out here being a raging lunatic and crying about stuff is never going to get you that thing. What else could you do to get mom to do what you're asking? And my middle daughter would just come out, Mommy, I love you so much. Can I have this? Can I have that? You're the best mom in the world. That was a manipulation that worked, and that changed my life and how I was creating with them.
Well, inviting them to choose happiness. It's like, hey, you're not going to get that until you're happy. Because how many of you also learned that you get everything you want if you're sad and depressed and miserable? So then you choose to be sad and depressed and miserable, thinking that you'll get what you want, but it doesn't work as an adult like it did as a kid. So you're changing the game by saying, dude, you're not going to get what you want when you cry, but if you're happy, totally different game.
And can I just say that there is teaching your kids how to manipulate.
Yeah.
That's manipulation. If you teach your kids how to manipulate from that age, they have that in life. So rather than when something's not working in life, they have a tantrum and go into fight, they have the tool of, okay, how can I go around this, and what question could I ask you to get what it is that I desire? That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And so much easier as a parent.
Yes.
Sometimes if they're doing tantrums as well, if you've got, the 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, well, someone said about your 2-year-old, how do you enjoy it? They're 2. It's called terrible.
Yes. Good luck. Drink.
Get some wine, get a babysitter, give yourself at least, 4 to 6 hours of alone time or something.
Yeah, make more money and hire a nanny and have them deal with them.
I look at where I throw tantrums. I might look different because I'm 46 than my, 2.
Oh, I think you'd be cute.
But I throw tantrums in my own way. So I'll look at, I do that. I just do it like this. And then I find the humor in how we do what we do.
But there's also another kind of tantrum that I just wanted to bring up is sometimes your kids are also really aware. So if I ever tried to take my, when he wasn't, even now, if I try and take him to a really crowded place, or like the shopping mall on Christmas, like the day before Christmas or something, he goes crazy. And so we talk about like, hey, is any of this actually yours? The rage, the craze, all this sort of stuff, because if you're also aware, that notice how that affects you. You get cranky, you get grumpy. So another thing, a couple of different tools, is also access bars. Access bars, if you run them on your kids, and if you run them on you,
do them now.
Who wants to go run our bars right now? Those will change. Those will take people out of tantrums and kids out of tantrums as well.
But, and what you're saying, Megan, is like actually ask a question, because when they're throwing a tantrum, it could be they're aware of something. So there's not, it's not, and this is what we've been taught to do with parenting: one problem, one solution. And so what was that?
It's not rational.
It's not rational. It is always asking the question, being in question. What is this? What do I do with it? How can I change it? How can I change it? And there's not going to be a set formula that we follow. It's irrational. It's not rational.
And it's also like their bodies need a lot of movement. So it's cool to just take them outside maybe more and make them move, because nowadays, like, kids really spend a lot of time in cars or watching TV or other screens. And I just realized with my kids that it helps if they just move a lot. So we go out and we really avoid tantrums that way. But again, it's all about asking a question.
What will work for you and your kids?
What's the most irrational thing I could choose today with my kids?
And can you guys talk more about, too, you're talking about choosing happiness and like empowering the kid to do that. And you were talking earlier about choosing happiness, well, choosing for you and choosing happiness for you. And there's one question earlier that maybe Annabelle or Doris or Shayna could answer, since you haven't spoken up yet.
I'll be quiet. I'm bad.
Okay. About choosing for you happiness, even if it's something that might seem like would adversely affect the child, like a divorce or a separation or something like that. Would either of you like to talk on that?
Well, I can maybe say a few words if my connection is good enough. I hope so. Can you hear me? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So yeah, actually, well, thank you for everything that was said already. It's the best call ever. I'm so happy to be part of it. Thank you for everything that has been asked and said. Actually, my tool for parenting is really being happy and having fun. And it was not something that I thought was available before. I was really following what my parents, how they had parent was also parenting our children. And I was not being myself, actually, but I didn't know that. So I had actually no fun and no joy parenting. And we are in the process of divorcing now. And it's really interesting to receive, about how awful it must be and how difficult. And actually, it's exactly the opposite. Because for the first time, I'm really choosing what brings me joy and fun. And my kids are so much happier. I'm not saying everything is fine and there's no tantrum and no problem and nothing, but everything is so much clearer. So, and actually I would have done it a long time ago. So if you are in the middle of a crisis like that,
Annabelle, you're breaking up a little bit, so you might want to turn your video off.
You sound like Robot Mum. I am Robot Mum.
This without anything to have some clarity, because so it was just, so everything is the opposite of sometimes some choices that are really judged in this reality can create a lot of space and fun and joy for you and thus for your children.
Can I just repeat one of the things that you said in there, because I think it will help people, is you said about being you're parenting from your parents' place. And a lot of us do this as parents. As we go, we'll find ourselves in this automatic way of parenting, and we'll be yelling at our kids, or we'll be doing something which was the exact thing that our parents did to us. When that energy comes up for you, just go, okay, who am I being here? I'm being my mum. Okay, I'm over that. But if you start recognizing the places where you do it, where you're parenting from somebody's point of view, it could be a friend, it could be your sister, it could be your mum, it could be your dad. If you recognize it, that's when you can change it and go, oh, I'm overdoing that. I'm going to do something different.
And that works for adults and animals too. No, I'm just kidding. But it does work for everybody. It's not just.
Yeah, you can say to your dog, "Who are you being?" And it's like, "I'm being a cat. I'm being a cat."
I think that's the one thing we really need to talk about here. And the whole word of irrational is that most of us grew up with our parents being so serious about parenting. Life was serious. Having a career was serious. Growing a business was serious. Having a job, going to medical, whatever. It's like everything was so serious. And
well, parenting is serious. I mean, hello.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the things that we all, I don't know, for me personally, I can't talk for anyone else, but like one of the greatest gifts of Access has been me recognizing, you know what? Nothing has to be life and death. Nothing has to be serious. And just like Brendan said earlier, we can't break our kids. They're too strong. They're too powerful and potent and amazing creators. They're just never going to allow that to happen. So if we looked at it from a totally different space of how much fun we used to have as kids until that point of where we had to be serious, like really look at your life and be like, okay, what would I like to choose now? And yes, we want to judge ourselves as parents. We want to say we do this wrong, we do that wrong. But you know what? Gratitude is one of the greatest gifts to turn any judgment around. And be grateful for one thing you did today or one thing you're being, which is asking a question. The fact that you're even desiring to be a better parent, that differentiates you from a million parents. So be grateful for that. And now what else is possible? You know, what have we not even considered here in this situation?
That there that you said is the tool on how you get, because people are going, well, how do I get out of judgment as a parent? Right there is every time you go into judgment of anything, you say, okay, instead of judging this, what am I grateful for? What am I grateful for here? Because if you're going to have gratitude for something, you can no longer judge it. So there's your tool, people, to get out of judgment.
Would someone like to take on the question that comes up in all of these Zooms of, what if I do Access and my partner doesn't?
Oh boy, this is the most popular question ever.
No, I'm just kidding.
I can actually take that one.
Okay,
I want to go back to my word allowance, because when I first came to Access, I was so excited. I loved the tools. I could just be like, oh, if only my husband, Peter, would be willing to do these classes with me. Oh my God, what could we create together? And my world and possibilities would expand. And then I'd come home and it just created so much crap. And so one of the greatest gifts was Gary said to me, okay, does he allow you to choose the things you desire to have and do? Yes. Okay. Does he let you spend money? Yes. Do you create greater together? Yes. Blah, blah. Okay. So he told me pretty much shut up. Okay. You have a great relationship, like honor, be grateful for that. And the minute my expectations went away to the fact that my kids, my husband, my mother, my sister, my friends, everyone had to do Access because of the possibilities I could see in the tools and asking questions, my whole world changed. So that's the one thing is like my husband, it's so funny, and kids, I go to class and osmosisly they get it anyway. Like I'll choose something greater for me, and my daughter called me and she got an article in a magazine. The other one got a promotion and my husband got a raise. Like it's this funny thing that we think everyone has to do what we're doing and choose what we're choosing. But when we're willing to be an allowance of what we desire to choose, we become the inspiration. But it doesn't have to be that the inspiration means they have to duplicate what we're doing.
Well, that's totally irrational that you could change and people around you could change.
I know.
Yes.
I know.
If you
there was
my husband is not, he doesn't take Access classes, so be really aware to not make them wrong in parenting, because I don't expect him to ask my son, who are you being? I can be that with him. And there was one time where you know, he parents a little differently. So he was raised where he would get like spankings or whippings, and I was like, if you touch my kid, I'll kill you. And there was this one,
and she means it when she says it.
There was this one day where Tristan was, you know, freaked out and did something that, to be honest, he knew that if he pushed his dad to that point, that it was going to create something. And I ran, I was outside. I hear him going to spank Tristan with a belt. And I was like, you know, raging bear mother. And so I asked Gary about this because I was just like ready to like get divorced over it, to be honest. And so I would think that I would need to ask Greg the questions like, why do you, you know, what's so fucked up about you that you think you need to abuse someone, you know, would be my point of view. And the question Gary said was, ask Tristan, what do you love about pushing your dad to that point? And I was like, oh my God. It again goes back to the question and the space that you can be to change the situation. So just had to throw that out there because it's the totally opposite way I would have handled it if I were doing it myself.
That is so interesting to ask the kids' point of view about spanking and our points of views about spanking. Like, I didn't spank my kids. That wasn't in the reality, but my daughter did something, and I can't remember this day what it was, but it was something that infuriated me. And I was like, that's it. You get a timeout or a spanking. Which one do you want? And she
Take the spanking.
She goes, a spanking? Yeah, I want a spanking. And I was just like, oh, you can't want a spanking? Nobody wants a spanking. And I was like, why? Why would you want a spanking? And she says, because you wouldn't hit hard and be over in a second. So I swatted on her butt and sent her to a room for a couple minutes.
Fine, you get both because I can't handle it.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to? So we're about at an hour, and there's been so many amazing questions, and you guys have thrown out so many tools. Since before we go, do you want to do like a little quick fire? Like if you had one, you know, irrational tool or question or something you wanted to say before we go that you'd like to contribute. And maybe I'll start with Shayna or Doris, since if you guys have a good connection to speak. Or maybe you're just muted.
How do I have a good connection and I'm in Australia and you guys don't have a good connection and you're in like proper places?
I can chat. So my hubby's just gone outside with my very noisy baby. So I just think the biggest thing for me, my baby's only 8 months old, has been really just allowing him to be that little being in a body. Like so many times he'll be crying and I'll be trying to settle him down. Someone said to me, just let him be frustrated. And I let him be frustrated. It only lasted 5 minutes and he fell asleep. So often now I'm just going to allow him to be that space, whatever it is. And I can really just see that he's just like us, like he's a big being in a tiny body, and he's just working it out. So I think that makes everything easier for me at the moment.
Thank you. Doris?
Yeah. So a big change for me was that we often don't want to be these horrible parents and this monster parents, whatever this is. And I have been on a call like 3 years ago with Dane, and I asked him about it, and he was like, would you be willing to be this monster? So everywhere you're not willing to be like a monster or like this not good parent is where you're not allowing to have this, and there is no choice in it. You really put it out of your universe, and you have no choice of everything. It's all about to being good. So this changed a lot for me, where I allowed myself to be everything. And so even if it happens that I would be something that I would judge afterwards, it's like, what if I can just look at it and say, okay, this wasn't perhaps the best choice, but what else is possible then? And this made me a lot of freedom in my world to see, it's not about the perfection of what is good. It's like what creates the most in this moment. And also to let the kids know, sometimes you might want to get loud or be not perfect, but it's not bad. And yeah, you have another choice then.
Cool. Thank you. Anyone else? Last irrational comments, tools, questions?
I'd like to say, let your kids get it wrong. Whatever you've defined is wrong.
Said it.
I think it keeps coming back to my favorite tool, which is allowance. And when you allow them, they're going to choose or not choose. And when they do, they just, like you said, get so much awareness, and they get to choose maybe something different next time.
That's cool. Let them fail. There's a lot of questions in the chat about worrying about what your kids are doing, like playing video games or pot or things that they're going to do that's going to create this terrible thing and that's going to be these terrible problems. One of the things that helped me with all of that stuff is to ask, wow, are my kids going to be okay? What's their future going to be like? And for me to look at the energy they are in, what the energy of their future was. And I always got a yes. They were fine. I think one time I got a no when my daughter was going to some party and I was like, that's not cool. This just feels terrible. And I walked into her room and instead of saying, you can't go, I said, hey, something's weird. What's going on tonight? What are you aware of? And she goes, oh yeah, it's really weird. I'm not going to go to this thing. So they know, and you know, you have an awareness of their future and you don't have to stress out and worry and all this worry and concern about this, the pot smoking, the video games for hours, the watching TV. If you check in with what they're creating with it. I mean, it may actually be a creation for their future that you're not even seeing yet, something that's going to create greater for them. So ask those questions for you so you can have more ease as a parent when they're doing things that don't make sense for you, because they're choosing their life and they're going to choose it anyway.
Yeah, no matter what you do, they're going to choose it anyway.
And to get to the place where you can check in, interesting point of view. Interesting point of view, I have that point of view, they shouldn't eat so much sugar. Interesting point of view, I have that point of view, they shouldn't play so many video games. Interesting point of view, I have that point of view, whatever. Make that your best friend, because most of the struggle we have and the problems with parenting is because we've decided something should be rather than asking a question.
And for me, it's also lower down your barriers, because this huge conversation in parenting is how to set up boundaries. Like for me, it's more about lowering down the barriers and just creating and providing the space where they can choose to be the magic that they really are, and we as well. So yeah, it's more like instead of this separation that we're so much trying to do, like how can we invite them to create together with us so we can be more like a team, not on different parts of sides of the river. Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. So if you have more questions and want more, all of these brilliant people are what we call conscious parents, conscious kids, facilitators, and access. So they're all access consciousness facilitators. And we have a specialty called conscious parents, conscious kids. And if you go to accessconsciousness.com, you can find a whole little, there's a special even little microsite website all about conscious parents, conscious kids. In the Access Consciousness shop, I think Megan put in the link earlier, there's a whole bunch of books and classes and telecalls around this topic too. There's a lot of videos on the Access YouTube as well, which the replay of this will be going up there. But we'll also send this out to you in an email with some of those links as well. I just want to say thank you to all you guys for coming on and talking.
Thank you.
Hey, can I just add one thing to what Emily was saying? These facilitators are amazing and brilliant, and I am excited. Like I cry every time we have a meeting, because I was saying on our last meeting, it was literally like 30 years ago. I remember just having this, there's got to be something different in the world for parents and kids. You know, there's got to be something different. And it's so being created with this group of people, and it's like growing so fast. And we have facilitators who are doing classes in other languages. So look them up. Find their classes, find what they're doing. A lot of them do one-on-one sessions where if you've got 20 questions that you have about dealing with your kids, look them up, set up a session, you know, so you can have some more pragmatic tools and application of the pragmatic tools. So, and what else is possible in the world with parents and kids for you personally and just in the world? I mean, what if every parent and every kid in the world, whether they know Access or not, has one tool that they use? What would that create? What would that change? And how can we all choose and contribute to that? So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys. And thank you everyone for joining. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.